Perfect.
Right. Welcome, everybody, to this week's Live Well Live webinar to help you on your holistic weight loss journey during the beginning, the middle, and the maintenance phase of your weight loss. So we really want to support you to make it to your goals and to maintain those goals. My name is Dr. Samantha Weller-Pilley. I am a GP. I'm also a yoga therapist and a nutritionist and a holistic coach. And it is a real passion of mine to support people through a journey of transformation, which is really how I view this journey of weight loss because there are so many facets to it. It really is a holistic journey that we are all on. And today I am joined by my colleague Ruth, who's going to say hi also.
Hi, everyone. For those that don't know me, a very warm welcome to you today. I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm a nutritionist with the Boots Online Doctor team and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. We really love bringing the webinars to you each week. They generally happen on a Monday between 1 and 2, as you can tell, because you're all here. And really, this is your opportunity to bring any questions you have about your weight loss or weight loss maintenance, in fact, journey. So, we're very keen, as Sam was saying, to 100% support you. So, if you're stuck or you're confused, here's the place you can ask. We love to support you in any which way we can. If you have a question which is very medically orientated to do with your particular health, it may well sit outside of what we can safely talk about in a webinar scenario, and we will just send you off to redirect you with that question to the right support. So please ask, and if we can't help you for safety reasons, we'll redirect you. We're also joined today by one of our colleagues within the Beats Online Doctor team, and that's Julia. So thank you so much, Julia. Julia's here to help us with any tech problems and to share resources. So that is it. If you have questions, pop them into the Q&A box if you can see it. If not, please pop it in the chat box. I can see we have people all over the country saying hello, so do say hello in the chat box. It's nice to know where you are. Miserable in Northumberland, cold in Woking. Yeah, very cold here down in Hampshire. Bit Mears, bit grey, but there you go. We live and learn. That's how the UK weather is. So
Yeah.
let's see, how's it been going? Sam, over to you.
Right. So accountability people. So we wanted to just welcome you to the webinar, of course, and let us know how you've been in. What positive changes have you made since last week? We last week spoke all about cravings, I believe, Ruth. Is that
That's right.
correct?
For that, I wasn't.
Was craving. I was there. Yes, it was cravings. We talked all about blood sugar balance and how emotional eating can impact us and those the roots of our cravings that we can have. Let us know what if you were there last week, maybe changes you made or realizations that you've had, because we really invited you to reflect on your weight loss journey and perhaps any cravings that you recognize that you have over the day. Thank you for letting us know where you are on your journey. It's really good for us to know where you are so we can direct the content for you as much as possible. So the most people we've got are midway through their journey. We've got a few just starting out and a few in the maintenance phase. This is really relevant information wherever you are on your weight loss journey. So, thank you for letting us know. It helps us to direct. And please do ask your questions. Use the chat box. Use us. We're going to be talking to you for about 20 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for questions. And we want to make sure that our content and what we share with you is as relevant as possible. So do ask your questions. Um, right. So yeah, it looks like everyone's had a bit of cold, a cold weekend, but I guess it is November. What do we expect? Right. So we're moving on to this brand new webinar all about protein. We're focusing on protein because we talk about it a lot all the way through this series because it is so helpful on a weight loss journey. So there's another little poll here. To ask you really about your energy levels over the day because that's um, kind of a good indicator for us. So, Ruth, do you want to talk about this first slide?
Okay, whichever. Yeah, so do take part in the poll. They're completely anonymous. We can't see who is answering. We just know that some of you have answered. So it's helpful to us just to know just to gauge what's going on in the room. It's our way of finding out what's going on for you as much as anything else, which can really help us make sense of this, hopefully, for you. So it's really interesting. We are asked about protein so often, and we talk about it so often throughout the whole webinar series that we thought, why not just talk about protein and get you all up to speed as to why it's so important and such an elemental part of everybody's health journey, and also in terms of a weight loss journey, why it's so important. I guess, as you've probably realized, protein is really powerful. And the reason is it keeps you fuller for longer. It can protect your muscle mass, which is obviously one of the key things that we talk about and that we know is really important in terms of your long-term ability to maintain your weight loss. For those in that maintenance phase, this is key and crucial. For people on a weight loss journey, this is key and crucial. For all of us in health, it's key and crucial. It's really the quiet engine behind that weight loss maintenance. So it's absolutely vitally important, and the role of it of protein cannot be underestimated. So why is it so important? Well, muscles burn calories much more effectively than fat mass. So if we work on building protein regularly in sort of stable amounts of protein throughout the day, it can have all sorts of brilliant effects. Muscle mass is one of those beneficial effects. It can help us to build stronger muscles. It isn't that we're going to become bodybuilders, it just is that our muscles become stronger. Our muscles burn calories far more effectively than our fat mass. So, actually, one of the things we want to work on while we're on this health journey is we want to be thinking about our body composition. We want to be shifting the body composition from a sort of higher percentage of fat mass to a lower percentage of fat mass and be thinking about building our muscle mass. That means when you get to the point wherein you're in maintenance or even on the journey of losing weight, you are going to find it slightly easier. It will also help maintenance be slightly easier. It also helps in strength, balance, and coordination. It isn't a magic bullet. It works as part of a balanced diet. So we talk about all of that in the what to eat, the how to eat, but you want to be combining your protein with some healthy fats, with some fiber, and with plant-based foods as well. The research says actually when we're eating protein, we want that variety. We don't want it always to be from the same source, and we want it to be a variety of both, all of the types of protein that we can. So let's see where you're at. Thank you so much to those of you, sort of 80% of you taking part in the poll. So let's look at your energy. So 4 people today have said that they've got really consistent energy. So that's pretty low number. So thank you for letting us know that. I think it's really important. Some people are saying it's quite consistent, and a few people are saying it's very inconsistent. So we're sort of like the middle range is mostly consistent, but with a few dips. That's the majority of people today. So what we want to do is we want to try and even out those dips, and protein at each meal around 0.8 of a gram to 1 gram per kilogram of your current body weight is what we would recommend that you aim for. If you're managing that and you're still feeling really hungry, then you can nudge that up. Or if you're in certain life phases, but we're not going to go into that in huge detail today, but just use that as your anchor, use that as your baseline and work around that. If you're miles away from that, maybe gradually build that in slowly. Wouldn't you agree, Sam? You're muted, sorry.
Yeah, I do agree. And I also think that if you're, for example, if you are sort of well on your way in your weight loss journey and you've started resistance training and you are building muscle tissue actively at the gym or some other activity, you might need a bit more. You can go up to 1.2 grams per kilogram just to actively build those muscles that you're working on. But we won't go too much into that. But this next slide is all about protein and muscle mass. So muscle mass is so important, as Ruth has spoken to us about already. But it's key to know that we naturally will start to lose muscle fiber from the age of 30 if we don't do anything about it. And protein and resistance movements will protect and build your muscle tissue. So we know about muscle tissue. We know that our muscles are what make us strong, what helps our body movements support. They also support our joints. So around our joints, we've always got a sort of muscle girdle holding the joint together, keeping it stable. So you can imagine as we all age, um, we want to keep our joints really well supported. Okay. And as we build muscle, as we do more resistance exercise, we're actually also strengthening our bones. So this is, as we age, this is a really positive thing when we think about this is actually aside from weight loss and the fact that it's such an amazing thing for our metabolism, but just for overall health and maintaining our strength and our bone strength, our bone density, and our joint health, because our muscles are supporting all of our joints. We know that protein, resistance movement, really beneficial things to do. Okay, more muscle gives us a stronger body and that higher calorie burn at rest, which is what we really want. That's what we're talking about when we are talking about muscle tissue being active, active at rest. So you could be sat watching Netflix and your muscle tissue is still burning calories, burning fuel because they need fuel to just be. Whereas fat tissue is much, much less metabolically active. So it doesn't burn as much energy at rest as muscle tissue will. So it really is a secret weapon when it comes to maintaining weight loss or even supporting your weight loss as you go along this journey because it's without much effort on your part, it's just burning energy for you. Okay.
It's so crucial and it sounds simple. We know it isn't as simple as all that, but we're trying to make it seem realistic and manageable for you.
Yeah.
So, Sam, I don't know if you want to talk about insulin sensitivity.
Sure. So, insulin sensitivity. So we want our bodies to be sensitive to insulin. So insulin is our hormone that is released when we have carbohydrates, when we have sugars in our diet. It's basically the hormone that packs away the sugar that we have in our diet. So our body digests our food, breaks it down into its component sugars. If we're having, say, a piece of bread, a slice of toast, made up of a lot of carbohydrates. Those are chopped all down in our digestive tract, and then sugars are released into our bloodstream. Insulin is released from the pancreas, and the insulin stores away the sugars as necessary. Okay, we want our body to be sensitive to that insulin so that our blood sugar is well controlled. Our body knows how to control our blood sugar because we know that when sugars are out of control, that is a sign of pre-diabetes, diabetes, type 2 diabetes later on down the line. Okay, so what we know about protein and insulin sensitivity is that protein slows down that glucose, that sugar release when we've eaten protein with carbs. So for example, if you had, say, this meal that we can see, we've got some salmon, some greens, and maybe some potatoes there. I can't see very well on the picture. But anyway, so you can imagine that there is carbohydrate in those greens and in that potato. But if you have it with that salmon, which is, a lot of protein in that salmon, you're going to really slow down that any kind of sugar spike, any kind of blood sugar spike that you would have. It would be a very slow, it would be much released much more slowly because the body is working to process and digest the protein with those carbohydrates. Okay. Um, but you could think on the other side, if we ate carbs on their own, so bread, pasta, rice, our blood sugar would quickly rise because that would be very easily digested. And the insulin would have to be released, and often that overshoots, and we can get a bit of a sugar dip as the insulin tries to pack away as much sugar as possible because it's suddenly flooded with a lot of sugar. Okay, and carbohydrates. If I will just explain, carbohydrates are basically long chains of sugars, or they're all joined together. So when they are metabolized by the body, when they're digested by the body, those long carbohydrate chains are chopped down, and you get sugars. Okay. Um, Also, we know that when you have more muscle, you use your glucose more effectively. You use your sugars more effectively. Um, so when we have protein, adequate amounts of protein in our diet, it really helps us prevent those sugar crashes, those energy crashes over the day. So this relates to the poll that we asked earlier, where notice if you have unstable or inconsistent energy over the day, because it might be because you're not having those regular amounts of protein in your diet with every meal. Okay. We want to prevent those energy crashes. We want to reduce your cravings because when we have an energy crash or a sugar crash, we probably recognize last week I spoke all about blood sugar balance over the day and getting on that blood sugar roller coaster that can go up and down. If we say, I use this silly example of having a sugary donut for breakfast. Okay. So if you have that sugary donut, you've got jam, you've got sugar, you've got sort of white flour, things that are very easily digested by the body and broken up into sugars. So you'll get a big sugar spike not long after you've eaten that donut. So you'll get a very high sugar, your insulin will be released, will try and pack away as much as it can because there's so much sugar in the system. And often what happens is that the insulin will almost overcompensate. So it'll almost pack away too much. So you'll get a sugar dip, ironically, after you've just been flooded with all this sugar. And in that time, you might recognize that feeling of being hangry, quite irritable, a bit foggy in the brain. You can't really concentrate very well. You're searching around, you get really hungry, and you're searching around for another high sugar, high carbohydrate snack so that you can. Your body is looking to replace that sugar to compensate and increase your sugar level again. What would happen, say, if you had had um, something with a good amount of protein in it. Say you had a piece of salmon on toast, something like that. Okay. So you had smoked salmon on toast. It was a whole wheat piece of toast. So that's, again, going to have more protein in it, going to have more fiber in it, is going to take a bit longer to digest, be a bit more involved for the body to digest, much higher protein. That sugar is not going to spike up in a straight line. It's going to be much slower, much more gentle curve. So your body has time to, doesn't have to rush to pack away all that sugar in the bloodstream. Very slowly can, gently, slowly can pack away the sugar that is not needed. So it's not going to kind of overcompensate in the same way. So you end up with a very smooth amount of sugar in the bloodstream. It can be utilized. Your energy doesn't crash in the same way. Okay, so we want to really look at that blood sugar balance and look at how protein can really help us with that, reduce those cravings, support your long-term health, have that more consistent energy over the day, that much easier day in terms of your energy levels.
Yeah, and I think also the key thing here is it's not just your energy during the day, it's your energy at night. We need energy to sleep well as well. So it's ridiculous. And what happens at breakfast can have such a huge impact on how you feel later in the day. It's sort of like cumulative, isn't it, Sam? So it's not just what we do in the morning affects the morning only. What we do in the morning can really set us up for a day where we feel great. So, how much protein? I think we've already covered some of this, but actually, how much protein do you actually need? A simple guide is around 20 to 30 grams per meal, or about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, and that's your current body weight. So, if you lose weight, you may want to, or if you lose considerable amounts of weight, you will want to think about readjusting that. Or if you're in a journey where you're sort of at a heavier weight than you've been before, you may want to just quickly calculate, okay, I'm this amount of kilos. This is how much protein I need to aim for. It doesn't mean that you have to pile your plate up with foods that you don't like. It could just be as simple as some yogurt for breakfast or some eggs. It could be fish or tofu or beans, pulses. All of the things can bring in lovely proteins across the day. The key is to spread this protein across the day. So if you're needing to have sort of like 60 grams in a day, then you need 20 grams ideally with each meal. If you're really struggling to eat larger meals, then break it down into smaller amounts so that it works for you. So if you're sort of really just only eating small amounts, put some protein in every time you eat. So it could be some nut butters or some nuts or a little bit of quinoa. It really doesn't matter, some hummus. The key is that you need it there. I think ideally what we would recommend is that you combine that protein with any snack so that actually you get that balance. So a snack almost looks like the sort of healthy plate. It's got the balance. It can be very small, but you've got the balance of nutrients and macronutrients. Your body can only use so much protein at once. So I think what we tend to do in the UK is we tend to have this predisposition to eating a large amount of protein with our evening meals or with our main meal each day. And actually, from talking to hundreds of people, it seems that a lot of people over rely on those sort of carbohydrate rich food sources for breakfast, definitely, and generally for lunch too. So I think we need to rethink how our meals look. It doesn't have to become complicated. It may just be a question to begin with of thinking, okay, where's the protein? How am I going to add this in to what I'm eating? So if you're somebody who eats toast, what can you do to supplement that toast with some protein? If you're a cereal eater, how can you turn that into a protein-rich meal? We don't need to rewrite the book straight away. It's just about bringing it in as simple a manner as you possibly can. So you want to get that whole balance of protein, carbs, and healthy fats. That will help in terms of the hormone balance, such as insulin, but also your sex hormones as well, but also for your brain health. So you want to be thinking about all of the colourful vegetables too. Think about lean meats, fish, eggs, dairy, plants, based proteins are things like beans, lentils, tofu, quinoa, nuts, seeds, and then quick fixes. I like to have a few of these in my fridge, and I'm sure you do as well, Sam. So, like, even protein shakes can come in handy for some of us if we're really busy. Greek yogurt is fantastic to just have sitting in your fridge. Cottage cheese, edamame beans, all of these things can be really helpful, and a little bag of mixed nuts can be really helpful to carry around in a bag. Obviously, we're all different. We all have our preferences. We live with people who might have intolerances or allergies, so we have to be mindful of that. So make your own list, make it work for you. Even just having a couple of hard-boiled eggs available just to snack on can make a huge difference. So see what works for you and see what you can make work. Making it practical is really important. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive, and I think I've already said that. So start by just anchoring some protein into every meal. So maybe eggs and yogurt for breakfast, maybe chicken or tofu for lunch, lentils, beans, meats for dinner, whatever your preference is. If you're thinking about your snacks, I think this is where we can all fall down a little bit. So maybe if you're somebody who likes to snack on crisps, maybe thinking about adding in a small handful of nuts. If you like yogurt, then Greek yogurt would be your number one. Combining that with some sort of frozen, defrosted, or fresh berries can be really brilliant and really easy. And also, just for me, this is what I've been doing this last month or so, is that I've often had lunch, some soup at lunch, and just added my protein into my soup. And it's been really quick, really simple, and really filling, actually. And I just feel quite sort of focused afterwards. You'll really notice your blood sugar feels different if you manage to do that. Add some seeds onto salads. Just really simple swaps are really effective. And I think, Julia, you've shared the protein documents. So have a look at those. We've shared some resources with you in the chat. So do feel free to load, download those. And if you're allergic to nuts and dairy makes you feel sick, then you're just going to have to lean into the other proteins that you actually do eat. That's the reality for all of us. So, I mean, if you can't tolerate any nuts, can you tolerate some seeds? You can get seed butters, you can sprinkle seeds onto different foods. But again, things like tofu may be helpful. Just be pre-prepared, or some eggs if you're somebody who will happily eat eggs, or fish, beans, lentils, hummus. The lists are pretty broad. I think we just get a little bit stuck in our ruts. We're all creatures of habit. So maybe just challenge yourself to try a new protein over the next week and see if that helps. Would you agree? I think I can be such a creature of habit. I have to keep.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Tend to go down the same aisles in the supermarket and put the same things in your trolley all the time. But I think for me, actually, cottage cheese was a real game changer because it's so like kind of innocuous and you can sort of stick it in things. And I've been making these sort of little egg bites that keep in the fridge for, a number of days, and they're just a sort of little protein hit over the day because yeah, I probably eat twice a day and yeah, have to think how am I going to fit the protein in? And I really enjoy a protein shake. I don't like very sweet things, so that's been interesting trying to find the right. And I think it is a bit of trial and error, finding the things that suit you, what works with your lifestyle. I'm more of a savory person, so I need to kind of figure out uh, you know, what I like the flavor of. So it's quite exciting, and it's good to diversify what you're having. So we're not always having the same things, and mixing it up a bit, having that diversity in our diets, eating a bit more seasonally, you know, and Ruth, you mentioned soups. It's such soup weather, and there's such like fantastic. I love pumpkins and squashes and that sort of thing, and now is the season for it. And adding something like white beans to a soup or lentils, just adds to the protein within that. You just have that much um, richer offering as well for yourself. I'm enjoying experimenting. It doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to be very time consuming, and things keep in the fridge or, put half in the freezer for another time. Um, yeah. So as we have been talking about, protein is a bit of an anchor, okay, but we need to think about balance as well. We're thinking about protein as an anchor because it really helps with our fullness, which is satiety. It helps with our strength, building our strength, supporting our muscles. It helps with our energy release over the day, okay? It helps with our blood sugar balance, and it really does support our long-term health, okay? And we're thinking about lean protein sources as well because we want to be a little bit careful with saturated fats when we're thinking about when we're having animal proteins, for example. So just bearing that in mind. When we talk about protein is really your ally in maintenance as well because of that benefit to your muscles. Okay, it helps you feel fuller for longer, protects those muscles, balances your energy. It supports your skin, your cell health. It gives your body the building blocks it needs to stay strong and resilient. But remember, it's not just protein. Protein works alongside healthy carbohydrates, healthy fats, plenty of colourful plants. It's our anchor. Strong, steady, and reliable, but it's part of a bigger picture. Okay. This is how we want to really thrive in maintenance, not just in the short term. This is a long game that we're playing.
Yeah, it's so important to be thinking about that. Some really interesting questions popping up, so we will come to those very shortly. So just thinking about the practicality, we've talked about this a lot. I won't go into this in huge detail because it's come up throughout the whole webinar. I think we're very keen for protein to be a key component of a balanced diet. So build your plate, really think about how this is going to be. Think about small, steady progress. Make it really simple. Make a little list for yourself of what you're going to maybe do differently, the foods that you can add in that are going to work for you, that you're going to enjoy and not feel as if you're missing out. But also with the mindset that actually you can feel like your energy is well supported, you're able to concentrate, you feel as if you've got consistent energy through the day, maybe even notice an improvement in your sleep as well. Um, and, think that it's got to be combined with the other elements of a healthy diet to really get the best for you. And just go for it and see how you get on. Yeah.
So I think we've talked about a lot of this already. We've talked about how protein protects muscle mass; it's our body's engine, and just little bits of resistance activity go a long way. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to, have hand weights at home. It can be as simple as putting a couple of cans of baked beans in a backpack and going on when you go on a walk. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be body weight exercises like squats or like push-ups against the wall, or just, very simple things. In fact, what we can do is share the exercise video link, so you can have a look at the Boots Online Doctor exercise video series, which is really good because it's for different levels of ability. Some of it uses just body weight, some of it uses hand weights. There are things that we can all do just to slowly support our muscle fibers to multiply and to just build a bit of muscle. We don't have to all have to be bodybuilders. It's not about that. It's about supporting our our long-term health, and it takes time, but it's something that we can get used to and maybe just slip into our day. It doesn't need to be a whole massive a lifestyle change, but it's being aware that cardio is great if you love doing Zumba or whatever it is, or running. Some of us are joggers, swimmers, that sort of thing. Brilliant. Swimming will give you a bit of resistance actually because you're pushing through the water, so you will be building muscle in that sense. Um, but yeah, a little bit of resistance if you add something, some weight on your daily walks, that can be really beneficial.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. And this is our final slide, and I think we have our final poll as well. So please do take a moment to have a look at that. So really keep it simple. Simple routines can really help you stay on track, whether you're in a weight loss journey or you've arrived at maintenance and you're really wanting to maintain that weight loss. So well done to you. I know we have a few people here today who are there. So congratulations. Um, really have it as simple as possible so that on your lower energy days or your really busy days, this doesn't become something you can't manage. Because we all have those. We all have those days which suddenly just become overwhelmingly busy or where, for whatever reason, more tired than usual. We want it to be so simple that you don't have to put the energy into it. It can just be a habit that you create. Build that habit in one step at a time, and build habits that last. And that is really very much what we want you to aspire to. So let's have a look at the poll. Thank you so much for taking part in that. And we'll also share with you the sort of webinars that we've got coming up over the next few weeks. We're going to be with you every week all through December as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. So let's see. You feel a little bit more confident as a result. Thank you so much. More confident. You understand what to do, what to eat. So that's good to know. And you're generally people are feeling a little bit more confident. So good to know that. So let's go for it. Let's see what you're going to manage to do over the next few weeks. And please do share next week when we come back how you got on. And we also have a feedback form. Julia, I don't know if you can find the link potentially and share that. We would love to hear from you. What's working for you today in terms of our webinar, what you'd like more of, what we can do additionally to support you. And we're going to stop sharing the slides. So, Julia, if you don't mind finding that, and we're going to come to your questions. So, thank you so much. Brilliant. And Julia has shared the feedback form. So, to fill that in, you just click on the link. Please do take a couple of minutes.
Got a great comment from Rachel about Aquafit. So I think that's a really good one because it is resistance and it supports your joints as well. So if you're doing exercise in water, um, fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. Protein shakes have been helpful. I find protein shakes really helpful actually. Um, yeah.
Rach had
Uh,
roast chicken with lentils, herbs yesterday, made lentil soup with leftovers today. Well done. That's like gold star performance from Rachel. So well done, Rachel. That's great. And you're also doing the aquafit. So you are really on a mission, I can tell. Do eggs include the yolks? The yolks have fat and cholesterol. Yes, it does include the yolks. So thanks for asking that question. There's still a lot of confusion about eggs and cholesterol. Generally, for the majority of the population, we have looked at the research, and for the majority of the population, cholesterol is not impacted adversely by eggs. It would appear that for some people, they have a genetic predisposition to having a little bit more of a reaction to the cholesterol in the content of eggs, but that is a smaller proportion of the population. So, in general, as long as you're not intolerant, allergic to them, or become really constipated from eating too many, eggs can be a really helpful source of protein. So I've noticed also there was a question in the chat box which was about the fat in Greek yogurt, and people being concerned. Obviously, one of the things we're keen for you to actually explore is including some of those healthy fats within your diet. We need a certain proportion of fats for our cell-to-cell communication to work properly. It can really help with insulin sensitivity too. Our cells are very, we rebuild the walls of our cells and we want messages to be able to get in and out of our cells. So actually the fats, the healthy fats that we can include in our diet can really make our body work effectively. So really important. We can't make essential fats, we have to eat them. So we really need to think about where they're coming from in terms of eating them quite regularly on a daily basis. Somebody's asking about plain yogurt, which contains kefir instead of Greek yogurt, and that was a question about the high fat. So thank you for asking that. Kefir is great. So again, we would really advocate that if your digestion is happy with it.
yeah. Which could you advise me on which protein powder to choose? As I don't like sweetness. I actually have started using a product called Organized, which I'm trying out at the moment. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a bit niche. Maybe have a look at it, and it might not be for you because it can be used sweet or savory. It's not super sweet. I have frozen blueberries with that, and I fill it up with water and a little bit of oat milk. But that's mine. It's also like a animal product based. So have a look at it and see if it is for you. It's I have felt really good on it, but I don't really want to advertise different products. But that's my recent find that I've quite liked. That's not too sweet, and also don't like sweetness. So yeah, like stevia and things. They're not brilliant for your microbiome, so I try to avoid. Um, so give that one a go if you want to have a little look.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been experimenting with raw sport and also pulsing protein powders. I think some of them I like better than others. So do experiment. They're all really, really different. So it's really worth trying. Somebody is concerned because they're eating 14 to 1600 calories a day and finding that they're actually gaining weight. So I'm really sorry to hear that. I think it might be that what I would recommend is actually just going and having a look at your basal metabolic rate and actually working out from scratch, if you haven't done that, what your sort of calorie requirements are to maintain your weight. And then you would need to be thinking about reducing that down by 250, 300 to 500 calories a day to actually support weight loss. We don't hugely focus on this. The other factor that makes a huge difference to our calorie requirement is our fat mass. So actually, there is. I will try and find a link. I've been looking at something called the Catch McCardle weight loss or sort of BMR calculator, which actually then puts in a layer around your body fat percentage, and that brings a much more opportune, bigger opportunity to calculate something that is more relevant based on your body composition. So if you are able to stand on a pair of scales that is giving you some body composition information, that can potentially be quite helpful. I hope that helps and isn't too confusing. I'm going to have a quick look for that.
Yeah, I just shared the BMR calculator on diabetes.co.uk.
Brilliant.
So that will give you a good basic calculation of your basal metabolic rate. And then you can apply underneath it is what's called the Harris-Benedict formula, which sounds more complicated than it is. You just basically multiply that figure that you get with the number associated with how much exercise you do in the day, in the day in the week, and then you get an idea of the calorie need you would have to maintain your current weight. So that's why Ruth said, so you might, if you're doing calories, you might want to reduce that by 300 calories a day. So then you would effectively lose weight because you're taking in less energy and you have an idea of your BMR. These are all kind of big population models, so they're not, they're not individually trained. What I think is really helpful is to have an idea of your body composition, as Ruth said. So, you can buy body composition scales that are, fairly basic from Boots, from Amazon, from wherever you like. If you go to a gym, you probably will be able to stand on scales that are quite a lot more sophisticated and maybe more accurate, but you'll still get an idea with the more inexpensive units. But then it's good. So we're not so focused on BMI. You know what your the percentage of body fat is, what your percentage of muscle mass is, and you get a more of an idea of your progress as you're changing over the period of your weight loss journey. Okay, so let's get back to some of your questions. We've got a bit of time here. Right. Someone is coming to the end of their journey with Mounjaro, which is one of the GLP-1 medications, and she is thinking about managing afterwards. Okay, so you mentioned microdosing. So I'm not entirely sure what microdosing is. You can, as far as I am aware, be on a maintenance dose, which might be lower than your current dose if you reach your goal weight. Some people want to spend a period of time still with that sort of safety net of a lower dose pen and stay on that, and not to carry on losing, but to just cement in those lifestyle habits. That is a personal choice. You don't have to. You can just stop. If whatever dose you're on, you can just stop. You, I would we really, really hammer home all this lifestyle advice because it is the lifestyle advice that is going to keep it off in the long term. Okay. And of course, when you come off that sort of intense phase of making all the changes, getting them to stick, etc., you know, things obviously start to relax a bit more after you stop that phase, and that's okay. But I think it's really important to know what you're doing. Maybe you do have pizza night with your family on a Friday night, but then what are you doing for the weekend? Is that going to be, are you going to, have a bit more of do a bit more exercise that weekend? Are you going to get, right back onto your good habits? You just want to make sure that you're not totally derailed by, things changing as you go into that maintenance, that phase, that long term, this is now who I am phase. It's not that we just drop everything and go back to how we were before. I think we all know that, but I think many of us, me included, have been on a cycle of yo-yo dieting for a long time, of being on a diet, off a diet, on a diet, off a diet, and having that real um, knowing that cycle well. And now, you might be in a phase where you've just come off a medication and you've seen a brilliant result and you're really happy with where you are. Um, so maintaining on a lower dose, I don't know what a microdose is, but it could be just the starting dose or one of the middling doses. Speak to whoever is prescribing for you, and they will be able to advise you on where you want to be. But I think I will leave it there because I can't go into specifics of
Yeah.
your individual case. But I hope that that is helpful nonetheless.
And also next week we have a whole GLP-1 webinar. And we've got a guest presenter with us who is one of our weight loss leads for the clinical team. So bring that question back if you would like to. Please feel free to. Somebody is saying they're 62 with possibly a lower muscle mass. And I think that's a good point. And we probably didn't raise that. But if you've got a history of weight loss and weight regain, sort of like in that pattern of yo-yo dieting, then it's very probable that your muscle mass is lower and your fat mass is higher. And that means that generally your body is going to be slightly metabolically less active. You're going to find it harder to potentially lose weight and slightly harder to keep that weight off unless you redress that sort of body composition. This is why this is so important. So thanks for sharing that. You're currently eating around 164 grams of protein. Is that right? You weigh 112 kilos at the moment and you've lost 8 kilos over 6 weeks. So it sounds like you are on an absolute mission. I would say for now that would seem about right. I would maybe go for that variety of protein. Make sure that you're looking at the information we've given you today. It's got lots of different sources of protein and the amounts per gram of that food or per 100 grams of that food, which can be a little bit helpful. And
Yeah.
moving on.
And also doing your resistance exercise to build muscle, I would just add on to that.
Absolutely. Somebody is saying a tag on to that they're having two chicken breasts at lunch with simple garden salad and dinner with boiled sprouts, broccoli, green beans, peas. That sounds delicious, like all those green veg. Is that a good approach for meals? I do that 5 days a week. I would say it's a nice, simple approach, and it probably works due to the simplicity. You don't have to put much effort and thinking in. I would really like you to start mixing up your proteins a little bit. Again, proteins break down a little like Sam was saying about carbohydrates breaking down into sugars and us absorbing them. Proteins break down into amino acids, and amino acids are the building block of our cells. So we want to bring variety as much as possible. Again, so even if you swapped around, could you have some fish for one of those? Like every other day, could you make those two chicken breasts actually some fish or some eggs or some tofu or some beans or pulses? What could you do differently? Is there something you could easily swap around? I would just go for that. And other than that, sounds like it hopefully is working for you. Um, is there a protein powder you can add to food and drinks? Yes, absolutely. Sam, do you know of any? I know, I would say, what would you say? The pulsing proteins. I
Yeah,
would recommend people
pulsing.
just mix those into soups, and that really is
Yeah.
so simple.
I mean, just you can just get whey protein, can't you? There's so many. I mean, just have a look. You can get unflavored as well. So I've also I was thinking just then, I think it's called like the Natural Protein Company or something. They do an organic whey that is not unflavored. A lot of them are sweet, which is you might like sweet. I don't. But chocolate or vanilla or whatever, that's one thing. But you can get the unflavored stuff, which you can add into savory things like soups. Or, you could just get a can of cannellini beans and add
Yeah,
those
and
in.
if
And
you don't
that's,
want whey protein, you can get rice protein,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can get pea protein. So there's a whole variety. Now, looking at some recent research, it would seem that their protein powders are slightly less efficient in terms of their protein effect in terms of our blood sugar as real food, which comes as no real surprise because it is almost getting into the realms of a processed type of protein. So I think yes, use it, but don't rely on it, over rely on it.
Yeah, yeah. So you could add something like hemp seeds or, lentils or, things that are really easy to add into something that will give you that whole food protein as well. Yeah, protein powders for me are quite good sort of on the go. You've just got your cup with you. Um, okay. Right. Yeah. So again, have you found things that I would just go for unflavored, like natural flavored or just non-flavored versions of whatever protein you like, pea, hemp,
All of,
soy,
they're all of them.
whey, whatever. There's lots of plant-based and non-plant-based options. Thoughts on adding creatine to shakes? Not in terms of weight loss, but creatine is great. I really like creatine. I add it. I have it every day. It's great for brain function. It's great for your workouts, that sort of thing. But not really in the context of weight loss. I'm not sure what the effect it has on weight loss. I probably should look that up. But generally, creatine is a pretty good supplement to use. There's loads of research on it.
I've
Uh,
written down to go and look at whether there's any wonderful research to support that for weight loss. We'll come back to you when we know.
one for next week, maybe. But our weight loss going to stay at very high prices. So yeah,
Somebody's
maybe
asked
one for next week.
about a 800-calorie fast for a short period of time. Does a very low calorie diet kickstart anything? I think what can kickstart if you are in a habit, always eating the same food variety can really kickstart. You want to be creating this metabolic flexibility, which sounds a bit techy, but it isn't. It's just about how our body responds. So a little bit of, the alternate day fasting can be something that's worth considering where you're maybe doing 800 to 1,000 calories on one day and then eating the sort of caloric requirement that would be still there to help you lose weight and just chopping and changing across the week. We don't want to be doing 800 calories day in, day out in the long run. And I don't think you're suggesting that anyway. You could do a little spell of a few days of 800 calories. It's about finding what works for you in your pattern of life as well, isn't it? You're still quite young by the sounds of it, so that may work for you very well. So depending on, I think different life phases need different things as well. So, and if it gives you the kickstart and maintains your motivation, then that could be a really good thing. But mix it up. Yeah, great question. What are your thoughts on mushroom coffee?
Uh,
Weight loss.
Um, I don't know. I cannot tell you if it has anything to do with weight loss. I quite enjoy a medicinal mushroom coffee. A lot of people I know don't because they have instant coffee in them, and a lot of people are coffee snobs, including myself, so they can they can taste like instant coffee. But I also think coffee. I wonder with mushroom coffees whether you get the benefit of the mushrooms because coffee itself is not, doesn't really help us to absorb other nutrients. So we shouldn't be taking any supplements really with our coffee because the absorption is not brilliant. So I wonder if the same is true of mushrooms. I do not know the evidence behind it, but that is generally true of any other vitamin that you would take. You wouldn't take your vitamins with your coffee. So I wonder if you really get the
I
benefits.
mean,
Might like the taste.
there are some great products out there. So it's worth just looking at the evidence on those product databases or websites. They should have some evidence to share with you, and I'd go back and look at that. I don't mind looking and seeing if there's any benefit in terms of weight management, but I don't think it would necessarily be straightforward in that respect. But it may help in terms of managing stress or, balancing your mood, or giving you a lift in terms of energy, and that may then help in terms of maintaining that motivation. That's where I'm going with it. Sorry to the person who was saying they were 34 to 35. That was talking in terms of BMI. So sorry. So thank you. You're older than that. I wish I was 34. The person said, yeah, me too. Wouldn't that be great? We could do all of this again for another 20 years. But I would say when we're heading into that period, if you're female and you're heading into that sort of unstable blood sort of regulation of our hormones, then just be careful with that fasting. Just play with it, see what works with you, see how your energy is. Let's get our focus away also from the scales, also thinking about how we actually feel, whether we feel great, whether we've got that sort of like va-va-voom when we wake up in the morning, whether we've got a zest for life, because all of those things are really important too. So it's really important to be thinking about how you are, not just how the scales are. I think we miss it, don't we? Somebody's calculated that their BMR is 1,700 calories and they're currently eating 1,400. So currently on 1,400 calorie deficit. What does that mean? Does that mean you're actually eating 1,400? So you've got a 300 calorie deficit. I think the recommended calorie deficit is around 500 for weight loss. And also, don't forget that factor of that body fat can really have quite an impact on caloric requirements. So it may be worth just looking and seeing, maybe play with it and see how you get on. Oh, Sam, you're mute.
There's a question about the prices of weight loss jabs. I think that's one to bring next week to the GLP-1 thing. As far as I'm aware, the prices do not look like they are going to be changing. Sorry about that. I know that they are very expensive. Um, Microdoses. So if microdoses involves counting clicks, we do not recommend that at all because the pens are not designed to do that. So um, yeah, sorry about that. I know it's not the answer that people want to hear, but we do not recommend it. It's simply not safe.
Okay, I'm just looking through the chat as well while you're looking at the questions. So lovely. Cool, cool, cool. Protein shakes really helpful, Sean. Yeah, I think a lot of people find them helpful. It's about finding the things that work for you, isn't it? Which protein powder do you like? I think you've covered that. Thank you, Sam. Cottage cheese or peanut butter on a slice of apple or pears, delicious for snacks. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things. So I'm with you on that. What's your go-to protein-rich snacks that keep in the fridge or carry with you? So nuts always, nut butters always, fruit and nut butters, fruit and nuts, eggs.
Yeah.
Um,
I do a little very easy cottage cheese and egg with a little bit of sort of mature cheddar and any veg I've got in the fridge, sort of little bakes. They're so easy. They're just little egg bakes that a
egg,
child could make.
egg
They're
muffins. Yeah.
yeah, they're brilliant as a little snack. What else do we have? Yeah, like little like oat cakes and nut butter. I normally have almond over in preference to peanut. Crumbs. What else? I'm a bit of a protein at the moment. It's protein shakes all the way, I think. But
I add flavored and unflavored collagen to my powder to in your coffee to support your skin and hair. Yeah, that can be really interesting, and for many people can find that helpful. Um, Okay, you mentioned body fat affecting calories. Does that mean more calories? I think, unfortunately, what I mean is it generally means that our body is less metabolically active. So, if we have a higher fat percentage, then we are likely to need fewer calories to fuel our body. So, that's why building in protein, building in muscle mass, switching our fat mass to muscle mass can be really helpful and one of the key factors that really sustains weight loss and weight loss maintenance. Taking a vitamin D tablet with breakfast while drinking coffee, would that really be better for your vitamin D to be later? Yes, I would say it probably would.
yeah,
Very
I wouldn't advise taking any supplements really. Not that I can think of off the top of my head with coffee or tea actually, or black tea, because they just the way it's metabolized, they're not as well absorbed. So
And you
you
do actually do need to just get them down into your digestive system. So you want to be taking them with a lot of water and flushing them down as well. So somebody's asking if you can eat salmon every day. Again, variety. Variety is absolutely key here. So don't forget to mix it up. If you love fish, try some different fish. Try some mackerel, some trout, or think about the other oily fish that are really healthful. And just try and bring that in. Somebody's asking about salted peanuts. Are they high in protein? Yes, but obviously for some people, salt would be problematical. It could have quite an adverse effect. Again, we're very individual. For some people, they're fine with salt, others aren't. So it's about you and making that work for you. So see how you go. Lemon and ginger tea. I love lemon and ginger tea, but don't be afraid to just have hot water and put some fresh root ginger or some slices of lemon in. We can make things really simply at home. And again, they can be really nice for us and really enjoyable. So, any last questions that you can see, Sam, that we haven't really?
What is better, whey or casein protein powder? Sorry, I didn't hear if you answered that. I think it's personal preference, really. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any great difference between the two, and it would depend what else is it. If you're using a powder, what else is in there? Honestly, I think between the two, they're both sort of milk-based proteins.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you would just want to look at
the label on the
the label. Yeah, just look at the grams per serving or what have you.
and
I'd be
also
looking
to
at that.
see how you feel with them because every food that we eat will have a different effect on how we feel, how your digestion is. Some people find that the whey protein really upsets them. Other people are better with rice. Some people don't do rice, but they're better with, just something different. So we're all very unique, and I think we forget that.
Yeah, yeah. Great questions today. Anyone, any more questions? We have 5 minutes and we've answered everything, I think. Or maybe there's a few left in here.
Running to a meeting, so see you at the next one. Thank you for that. Um, so that's done. Okay, the prices, I'm not sure we'll even be able to answer that, but we can ask before next week and see if we've got anything we can add to next week's webinar. I don't think we're covering that in theory at the moment, but we can ask about that. Um, if you do not like sweet things, have you found a brand of shake that is not like drinking sugar? Yeah, it's really important. But also, don't forget you can make your own shakes at home. You could just start off with some basic ingredients and use, if lucky enough to have a freezer and you've got some space, get some frozen berries, freeze some avocado or buy some frozen avocado, use some yogurt, some nut butters. It's really simple, put in
Yeah,
some raw cacao powder, or if you don't like cacao, don't use that. It's always about just making something that you are happy to eat or to drink, because this isn't about feeling miserable, feeling as if you're missing out. It's about learning to enjoy delicious foods that actually really work for you.
yeah. There's a good question about sugar spikes with sweet shakes. So think about what we were talking about. So protein and carbohydrate together, that sugar will be released more slowly. Also, look at the ingredients on the shake that you're having. If you're buying a pre-bought something or powder or whatever, sometimes often has stevia in, which obviously adds to the sweetness but can disrupt the microbiome. We know that we still have an insulin response if there's a sweetener in there, even a natural one, even date syrup, even agave or whatever these coconut sugar, which are, in my opinion, much better because at least they're more close to the natural product. We do have sweet in nature, but um, we don't want to, if we don't like sweet or we don't want to have, sugar spikes over the day, we're having it with protein. So remember, when we have something with protein, that sugar is that sugar spike is kind of blunted. So it's more of a softer curve. So don't worry too much, but do be aware and see how you feel because we all metabolize slightly differently. How do you feel after you have a sugary, oh, not sugar, they should not be sugar. So let's just make sure that our shakes do not have sugar in them. But if they're natural sugars in there, if we put a banana in there, for example, they can be quite sweet because bananas can be quite sweet. But just see how you feel afterwards. There's lots of great things in bananas as well. And if we've got a good amount of protein in that shake as well, some natural yogurt or a protein powder, we should be able to blunt that sugar response.
Yeah, and really just I would agree, if you're enjoying that, just see how you feel. Right. I think we're done for today. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have great weeks. We will be back next Monday, and we are talking all about getting the best from GLP-1s, which again is another new webinar. So that's two new webinars in a row. How exciting.
Gosh, how exciting.
Exciting
We'll see
exciting
you
for
next
us anyway.
Monday.
And thanks to Julia for being here and helping us as well. Thanks, Sam. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Ruth. Bye, everybody. Thank you.